I'm standing in my Frankfurt apartment hallway at 1903, watching my American neighbor Brad ring my doorbell for the third time. He's holding a bottle of wine, wearing shorts, and increasingly confused about why I'm not answering. I'm inside, staring at my watch, because he's 3 minutes early, and in Germany, that means he's catastrophically rude. When I finally open the door at exactly 19:30, Brad immediately launches into his theory about why German doorbells must be connected to government surveillance systems. That's why you didn't answer right away, right? You were checking my social credit score. He's genuinely asking. I look at his shorts, his room temperature wine, and the fact that he brought nothing for my wife. This is going to be a very long evening. My colleague Petra called me last month, laughing so hard she could barely speak. An American at her dinner party had just asked where the ranch dressing was for the sauerbraten. When she said she didn't have any, he pulled a bottle from his cargo pants pocket. I travel prepared, he announced proudly, drowning a 4-hour braised beef roast in Hidden Valley. Then he asked why everyone was staring. Germans take dinner parties seriously. We plan for weeks, cook for days, coordinate arrival times with military precision. Americans treat them like spontaneous hangouts with food. The cultural collision creates comedy gold, and after 17 years of hosting Americans in Germany, I've developed a classification system for the chaos. My neighbor Klaus hosted an American exchange teacher named Jennifer last year. He invited her for 200 hours. She arrived at 1945, rang the bell, and found Klaus still in the shower. Jennifer immediately texted her friends back home about weird German passive-aggressive power plays and how Klaus was clearly upset she arrived early but won't say why because Europeans are indirect. When Klaus answered the door in his bathrobe, dripping wet, Jennifer breezed past him announcing she wanted to help set up. She started rearranging his carefully planned place settings to be more casual and fun, moving his grandmother's Meissen china into a family-style situation. Klaus stood there, speechless, as she explained that in America, good guests arrive early to help. She then asked if he had any paper plates, to save on cleanup, and suggested they order pizza instead since you're clearly running behind. Klaus later told me he genuinely considered faking a family emergency to cancel the entire evening. Jennifer spent the actual dinner party telling everyone how Germans are so stressed about entertaining and how she'd tried to help but he seemed annoyed. My wife's book club invited an American woman named Tracy last winter. Tracy showed up with a massive gift bag containing a Costco-sized box of goldfish crackers, a University of Alabama commemorative throw blanket, So You Remember Me, a CD of her son's middle school band concert, and a framed photo of her family at Disney World. When my wife tried to politely set these items aside, Tracy insisted on a full unpacking ceremony. She made everyone pause their conversations to appreciate each gift, explaining the thought process behind the goldfish crackers and why the blanket was special. Then she asked where my wife was going to hang the Disney photo. When my wife said she'd find the perfect spot later, Tracy suggested specific walls. The other German guests sat in frozen horror as Tracy then asked if anyone wanted to hear the CD right now to set the mood. My wife later discovered Tracy had posted on Facebook about Germans not appreciating generous gifts and how she'd gone above and beyond, but they just seemed confused. The photo is currently in our basement. The goldfish crackers were donated to a food bank. We still don't know what to do with the CD. My brother hosted an American consultant named Mike for a formal birthday dinner. The invitation specifically said Festlich, formal dress. Mike showed up in cargo shorts, Crocs, and a beer logo t-shirt that said, "I'm here for the beer." He immediately explained that he'd researched German culture and knew that Germans value authenticity over pretense, so he'd dressed like his true self. When my brother gently mentioned the dress code, Mike launched into a passionate speech about how clothing-based discrimination violates basic human rights, and how he'd actually dressed up by German standards because at least his shirt was clean. He then pulled out his phone and showed everyone a Reddit post he'd found titled, "Germans don't care about fashion," as evidence. Throughout dinner, Mike repeatedly referenced his cultural research, explaining that German casualness was actually more evolved than American superficiality. When other guests arrived in suits and evening gowns, Mike announced he was starting a trend toward authenticity and asked if anyone else wanted to get comfortable. He spent the entire evening sitting with his Crocs up on a chair, explaining that Germans invented nudist culture so clearly they support comfort. My brother later found Mike's blog post describing the party as typically German, everyone too uptight except me. My cousin Anna made Maltaschen for her American neighbor Tom, a traditional Swabian dish she'd learned from our grandmother. Tom took one bite, set down his fork and said, "So this is like a German hot pocket?" When Anna said no, Tom insisted it was basically the same concept, meat and dough, just fancier packaging. He then explained that he'd simplified the recipe by suggesting she just use ground beef and American cheese next time to save effort. Tom spent the rest of the meal explaining how every German dish was basically an inefficient version of American food. Schnitzel? Chicken nuggets for adults. Spatzel? Fancy mac and cheese without the cheese. Kartoffelpuffer? Hash browns that require too much work. When Anna served Black Forest cake for dessert, Tom examined it suspiciously and asked if it was safe to eat raw cherries. Then he pulled out his phone and started Googling German food poisoning statistics at the table. He announced he'd stick to the bread and asked if Anna had any peanut butter. When she said no, Tom revealed he'd brought his own jar, organic, crunchy, and spread it on her homemade Bauernbrot while explaining that Germans haven't discovered the full potential of bread yet. He then asked if anyone wanted to try his American improvement and seemed genuinely hurt when everyone declined. Anna later told me Tom had texted her suggesting she modernize her cooking and sent her a link to a BuzzFeed article titled 30 Ways to Make Foreign Food Less Scary. My friend Dieter invited an American couple, Bob and Linda, to his carefully planned dinner party last fall. Dieter had researched topics, prepared intelligent discussion points about the new exhibition at the Stadel Museum, and arranged seating to facilitate good conversation. Bob and Linda arrived and immediately asked, "So, who'd everyone vote for?" in the same tone you'd ask about someone's favorite ice cream flavor. When the table went silent, Bob laughed and said, "Oh right, Germans are shy about politics." He then proceeded to explain American electoral politics for 25 minutes straight, including detailed descriptions of swing state dynamics, campaign advertising strategies, and his personal theories about voter turnout. Every time someone tried to change the subject, Bob would say, "But wait, there's more context you need," and continue. Linda nodded supportively and occasionally added, "Bob follows politics very closely," as if this explained everything. When Dieter finally managed to bring up the Stadel exhibition, Bob interrupted to ask if the museum had any normal art or just weird European stuff. He then explained that he didn't get abstract art, and that Americans prefer realism because we're practical people. Linda agreed and said they'd tried to go to a museum once in Berlin, but it was too confusing. Bob then launched into his theory that European art is intentionally obscure to make tourists feel stupid, and that American art is more democratic. When another guest, an actual art historian, tried to respond, Bob said, "Well, I'm just speaking as a regular person with common sense." The art historian excused herself early. Dieter later found Bob's TripAdvisor review of Frankfurt describing Germans as not great at small talk and suggesting the city offer conversation classes for locals. My sister hosted an American named Ashley who couldn't understand why dinner took 3 hours. After 45 minutes, Ashley started checking her phone constantly and sighing loudly. When my sister brought out the third course, Ashley actually said, "Jesus, how much food is there?" in a tone of genuine distress. Ashley then announced she usually eats in under 20 minutes, and that this is basically performance eating at this point. She asked if she could get her main course to go, so she could eat at her own pace at home. When my sister explained this was how German dinner parties worked, Ashley said, "That's actually inefficient from a time management perspective," and offered to send some American productivity articles later. She then pulled out her laptop at the dinner table and started answering work emails, explaining that Germans are always talking about work-life balance, so you'll understand I need to maximize my time. When other guests looked shocked, Ashley said, "What? I'm multitasking. It's the American way." She then asked if anyone else wanted to work while eating to be more efficient. My sister's husband quietly confiscated Ashley's laptop and put it in another room. Ashley spent the rest of the evening describing this as an international incident and threatening to report this to the American embassy as theft. She later left a 1-star Google review of my sister's house, yes, her actual residential address, describing the dinner party as hostage situation with too much food. My doorbell rings at 1900 hours again, Brad, my American neighbor, for our second dinner party attempt. This time he's exactly 30 minutes early, wearing a full 3-piece suit and holding 7 wrapped gifts. He's clearly consulted the internet. Badly. "I researched everything," Brad announces proudly. "I know Germans value over preparation." He hands me the gifts one by one, a cuckoo clock, because Germany. A bottle of Jägermeister, your national drink. Lederhosen in children's size, a framed photo of Neuschwanstein Castle, for your wall. A beer stein shaped like a boot, a cookbook of Oktoberfest recipes, and a DVD of The Sound of Music. I'm holding this pile of increasingly bizarre items while Brad stands in my hallway, beaming, clearly expecting praise. The party starts at 19:30, I say carefully. Brad's face falls. "But I wanted to help," he says. "That's what good Germans do, right? Arrive early to help." I glance at the mountain of German stereotypes in my arms. "Actually, Brad," I say, "good Germans arrive exactly on time." His face transforms with understanding. "Oh, so you want me to wait in the hallway for 30 minutes? To be respectful?" He's genuinely asking. In the distance, I hear my wife laughing from the kitchen. She's already met Brad. The thing about cultural confusion is this. We're all just trying our best with incomplete information and confident assumptions. Brad will eventually learn that 1930 means 1930, that cuckoo clocks are Bavarian tourist traps, and that Jägermeister is not, in fact, a daily beverage. But tonight, I'm going to let him wait in the hallway, clutching his lederhosen and his good intentions, learning the hard way that German hospitality has rules. Very specific rules. And honestly, I can't wait to see what he Googles for next time.